Tom on some kind of homemade cart at midday today.
I'm sorry, you said you saw Tom?
I saw Tom Flynn on a homemade cart with a friend. They were struggling getting it going, and I teased him about whether he was going to make the meeting or be stuck in the woods someplace.
Yeah. Well, let's
Okay.
hope that he makes it. But I think at this point, since Karen has it being recording now, that I'd like to call the meeting to order. And this is a meeting of the Board of Water Commissioners on Tuesday, December 7th. We will get started. So I'd like to open it up with Jonathan Preisler giving us a report on several of the items that are on here. So, but I'll start with first by saying that indeed, for those of you who may not have known, that the contract with Whitewater for the water system operations has been finalized and is in effect at this point. That contract is currently is for the first year, and then we have the option of 3 renewals following that. So I'm hoping that we won't be going through that process again for a while. Anyways, so Jonathan, I'd like to turn it over to you to let you start on your monthly report, and we'll fill in wherever we need to.
All right, yeah, I noticed the agenda had quite a few of these on there. So do you want me to go right down the list, or do you want to stay on your agenda?
Yeah, if you take the 2, 3, 4, 6, at least through the PFA testing, please.
All right. So we did have the water storage tower inspected by Underwater Solutions. Their report did not come back with any red flags at all. So this was something that DEP recommends is done every 5 years, and you're at about the 5.5 to 6 year range. So it's good that we did it. That came up in the sanitary survey that was done earlier this year, and it was one of our corrective actions stemming from the TC positive hit that we had at the tank a month back. So they did remove the sediment that they was collecting at the base of the tower, or at the top of the tower, but the bottom of the bowl. They said there was about 6 inches of sediment there, which was iron and manganese that is naturally in the water. All the seals on the hatches look good to them, and that report had been sent to Jim. And if there are any more questions on that, we can go into more detail, but everything looked good up there to them.
Based on your review of that report, Jonathan, did anything stand out that we would be needing to do any remedial work in the near future or within the next couple of years?
It didn't look like it to me. I mean, the pictures they sent, there was very minimal corrosion and only a couple of pictures. That was outside the tank too. On the inside, it looked pretty clean and good, especially when they were done. So I would say no. I don't know if John had looked at that and saw anything different himself, but if he doesn't have any comment, then I'd say you're in good shape.
I
agree with Jonathan.
Thanks, John. I know one question had come up about the condition of the paint on the exterior of the tank. Is that something that you think we're going to need to take care of within the next year or two?
The paint itself to me looks fine. It just looks like there's a little bit of mildew or mold building up on the outside, probably just from condensation, and that could be cleaned or power wash, but from what I can see, it doesn't look like the paint itself is in bad shape.
Okay. Any questions, Neil or Catherine?
It mentioned 6 inches of sediment on the bottom of the tower. Has that been removed?
Yes, they vacuumed all that out.
Oh, okay, good.
I have no questions.
Okay. All right. So let's
All right.
continue, Jonathan.
Yep, so the water usage bills were sent out by Pennachuck. I cannot comment on how many people have paid the bills or what percent you've brought into this point. I know we did check out a couple of addresses that had questions about their usage, and I either am still in the process of working on them with the client or have advised Karen to bill it because there was either construction at the address, which probably added up to more water, or I've checked some meters with the owners present and show them that the meter is working properly. So I don't really have anything else on that. That was just a quick update that everything was sent out and
Okay.
Karen's in the process of collecting money.
Right. Well, I believe that Karen is going to give us maybe more of an update on billings and collections later on in the meeting. So,
Yep, I
Okay.
have that ready for.
good, good. Just to ask a question, Karen, are you aware that we have any other visitors other than Gail with us?
No,
Okay,
that's it. Just Gail.
all right. So Jonathan, how about the generator repairs?
Yes, I did sign the quote and send that back to South Shore Generator, and that was the end of last week. So we're on their schedule. I do not know when they're coming at this point, but I will let you know. So that was just to fix two things.
Explain what the issue was there, because I don't think that everyone was aware that we had a problem or what was done about it.
Yeah, so going back to that storm that we had when everyone lost power a month ago or so, I did have to call South Shore Generator because the generator turned on as it should, but then there was the coolant sensor measuring the level of water to keep the engine cool, and the generator wasn't functioning properly, and it was saying that there was not enough coolant in it to work properly, which was not the case. It was actually just a sensor. There was plenty of coolant in it, but it was shutting off the generator because of that alarm. So to get it back up and running short term, so we did have power, it was just reconfigured so that it would work properly electrically. Basically taking that sensor out of service just so it would run. And also when it was back up and running and South Shore Generator was out there, it was noticed that the voltage that it was providing into the pump station was fluctuating pretty drastically. So they are going to replace the regulator that regulates the voltage that it's putting out.
So was that the only repair that was required then?
Those are the two repairs that they're still going to do, and that's what the quote entailed for them to do.
I'm sorry, did you quote the amount, what it is?
I can pull it up quickly. I believe it was, oh, 1 second, please.
I'm sorry, I didn't have that right in front of me. That's why.
Yeah, that's one thing I forgot to pull up.
Wasn't it around $2,000?
No, I think it was 1,300 is ringing a bell for some reason.
For, excuse me, for Kathy and Neil, I want to remind you that one of the issues that we had talked about before with the Coles Neck well field was that the generator there is out of service and needs to be replaced. So that's something that we have to address when we're doing the work on the water main that begins at the Coles Neck well field. We will have to revisit that issue as to whether or not we should in fact replace the generator there. Because in this case, the generator failed at the Boy Scout camp. And had we needed to activate the wells at the Coles Neck well field, we would not have been able to there because that generator is currently out of service. So that's something we're going to have to discuss as we move ahead with the replacement, or as we with the installation of the new water main from Coles Neck.
So go ahead with repairing it with this 1,300 then?
For the one at the Boy Scout camp well.
Yeah,
It's actually only $1,090,
okay.
but they haven't been coming quarterly to conduct an inspection and their routine maintenance. So I have you on their schedule now to come every 3 months to do that, which is highly recommended.
Right. I think that's a good idea. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Any questions, Neil or Catherine?
Do
No,
the generators exercise about weekly?
Yes. For about 20 to 30 minutes.
Are they under load?
They're exercising, but they're not running. We're starting to kill the power to the plant so that they're running everything that needs to be run when we do that. But when it's exercising, no, it's simply just running.
No,
It's not.
How often does it run under load?
We're starting to do that weekly as well now.
Okay,
because when they come in, when South Shore comes in to do their service on it, they do put it under load then, correct?
Yes.
All right. So the next item on here then,
So well 2B, going back 2 or so weeks now, the VFD was giving a fault, and the diagnosis on it is a failed motor. And I actually just got a quote from the guys, Mar Pump, who has done work in the past and did work when on the other well up there when it was struck by lightning. So I will forward that over to you all after this meeting, but that's a diagnosis that the VFD is fine, but there's some kind of short down there in the motor, and they're gonna come out. The quote I asked them for was to come out with a motor, 25 horsepower motor on with them, so that they don't have to diagnose and then come back in hopes that they can conduct their own tests and then confirm what we already believe is a bad motor and just replace it all in the same day.
is it definitely diagnosed as a motor short or a drop cable short?
I don't have those details. At this point, we're just very, not 100% positive, but very certain that it is not the VFD and has something to do with the motor.
Because VFDs very frequently are troubled by a drop cable short, the cable leading down to the motor in the well.
So when they come out, they'll test all that before they replace anything, but
but at least what you're saying is they'll at least have, hopefully have a pump with them if it needs to be replaced.
correct, if it does.
Right.
Motor, not the pump, two different
I'm sorry, motor, right.
things, yes, but I'm trying to avoid them charging you to drive all the way down here from the North Shore, charging you twice, but yeah, they will diagnose, and I did tell them that before, that this is what we think, but do your own due diligence before you do anything.
Yeah. So just to make clear for Katri and Neil, this is the well that was not struck by white lightning last year.
It's
Okay,
Coles Neck well field?
No, this is at the Boy Scout camp well. You
Oh,
remember last year in early June, either May or early June, we had a lightning strike there that took out the other pump there at the Boy Scout camp.
do we have any kind of protection for surge protection?
There are surge protectors in the pump house, yes.
Apparently, they're not very durable.
But how common is this? Do you see this with other well sites that you service?
Yeah, fairly, actually a system that uses more water than Wellesley does daily. We just had to replace a motor there as well. But I haven't been in the industry long enough to say how often it does happen. I mean, motors are going to fail, but
Yeah. Well, that was my next question with respect to the motor that failed this time. That has been in there now since 2009 or 2010. So should we expect or should we plan that the life of a motor in one of these pumps is going to last more than 10 or 11 years?
I know in the past year, I've heard that some places have motors that have been in the ground for 30 years and haven't needed to be replaced. And then you also see it after 5 or 6 or maybe even less than that. So John, I know you could
just
probably
to-
speak more to that.
Well, that's the hardest question you get from anybody. How long is my pump going to last? Water, wastewater. I've seen very expensive pumps go in a year, and I've seen them last for 20, like you said. But this is a good indication because the last one just went. Whether it was lightning or whatever, it still only lasted that long. So 10 years, I would think, would be a good, benchmark for you to use. So in 10 years from now, you may start to think about it. And my
Yeah.
other just thought is, while they have that motor out of there, I wonder what the life of the pump is. And I probably should have thought this through before the meeting, but I didn't. When we changed the last one, did we change pump and motor, or did we just change the motor? And would it make sense to change the pump at the same time, and then we don't worry about it for 10 years?
Normally, the life expectancy of a pump is not measured by how long it runs. It's measured by how many times it starts.
Starts and stops, you're right.
And the pumps only are started, a couple times a week, maybe?
Yeah, they're
Right.
actually alternating between each other when we're running under normal circumstances. And right now they're only turning on once every 5 days. In
Yeah,
the summer, it's more like once every 2.5, but
that would be a 10-year life would be kind of short. Because these big pumps are very, very durable.
I think it might be a question just to ask Mile while they're down here anyway.
Yeah,
Of course, they'll probably, for money wise, recommend replacing it, but it was just a thought. Like I said, I know it starts and stops. My home well, I had to replace because it starts every, how many times a day. And the motor was fine, but the well pump went. So it was just a thought.
because I service a lot of domestic submersible pumps, and usually when it's has a failure, it's a problem with the water storage tank air cell, and the pump is short cycling. And that's not the case with these pumps.
Yep, that's a good point. I will talk to them about it and see what they say and consult with everyone before we do anything, but I'll have to talk to them before they show up. And do we know the last time that was replaced?
Well, with that, the pump,
Yeah,
well, if I assume it's the original one that was put in 2009 or 2010.
okay, so,
I don't recall that we have replaced that, at least not in the time that I've been on the commission.
well, we haven't seen any reduction in flow out of it at all. So it's, from everything I know, it seems to be in good standing. It's not, I know the one we just went through the same thing, the same place I was talking about. We replaced the motor. They're saying, do you want to check the pump out? How many gallons a minute is it doing? Have you seen a reduction in flow at all? And I had not, so I told them to leave it. But, same thing here. Seems to be putting out the same amount of water since I've been around. It's always putting out the 270 gallons a minute that we run it at. And I haven't seen any changes in that. And I don't know what it's done over the past 10 years, but I haven't seen any changes myself in the past year.
Okay. All right, well, you'll keep us informed on the follow-up with this, so.
Yep.
Thank you.
So next on the list is, I think you wanted an update on PFAS again. And my little write-up here, I apologize in advance, but it says there were no detects of anything. After reading or going through that 108-page report in more depth, I pulled out the numbers for the PFAS 6, which is what's actually regulated. And it's not that we didn't need to take confirmatory samples or anything. There were some traces detected, which totaled, our maximum level in the state is 20 parts per trillion. I just pulled out the 6 contaminants that make up the PFAS 6, and it came out to 10.28 parts per trillion. So that's why we weren't close to the 20. So that's why they didn't want to take any samples to confirm the levels, and nothing needs to be done at this time because you're at the 10.28 when the MCL is 20. So the next step is to take another round in January because it is quarterly and they were taken in October, and hope that we get the same results. If we do get the same results under 20 parts per trillion, we can apply for a waiver to skip the next 2 quarters if that's what we want to do. So you wouldn't have to pay for that. We wouldn't have to take the samples. No guarantee that they do grant us that waiver. But if they did, from my understanding is it's only good to skip 2 quarters of sampling. So we would have to resume again in October and then follow the same pattern. Take 2 quarters worth of samples, so sample twice, and then continue. I believe at this time we would have to
Jonathan,
continue sampling.
If you want, I can jump in on this if you'd like.
Oh, I didn't know you were on the call, but yeah, please do.
Okay, sorry. Hello, everyone. I'm Jared Whitney from our compliance group, and Eric was maybe not going to be able to be on. I think he had a conflict here, so I said I would sit in for him. But Jonathan, I'm sorry, I don't have the reports here in front of me, but if the PFAS 6 totals above 10, just wanted to let you, the waiver option is probably not available. If we were completely non-detect and had 0 levels, then excuse me, then that's when the waiver might be applicable. So as Jonathan said, we do need to take another round of sampling in January. And we won't be able to make any decisions or make any sort of requests until we get the results back from that. But we'll definitely be sampling in the next round. But if the levels do come back in the range of the 10 even, we'll probably have to remain on quarterly sampling, and hopefully just continue to monitor. And as Jonathan did note, if they exceed the 20 parts per trillion, that's when you'd be required to start designing and implementing treatment.
What sources other than firefighting foam causes a positive on that PFAS?
So, well, PFAS is in almost everything in everyday life these days. Anything that has a water repellent, aspect is very likely to have PFAS. So, not that it would necessarily be contaminating your wells, but just from a general information, any nonstick pans or many nonstick pans, I should say, Teflon type products, different rain gear, Gore-Tex type things, any stain resistant clothing or fabrics, couches, rugs, things like that. So PFAS it's in cosmetics, makeup, things of that nature. So it's in a lot of everyday life. As far as groundwater contaminants, the firefighting foams is definitely a heavy one, both from it could be gas stations, it could be military bases, airports, things of that nature. That's one of the major factors. Beyond that, seems to have been, and I'm not an expert here as far as the contamination aspect of this, but there's, I believe, situations where it can be released into the atmosphere through, I think one of the major brands, I don't want to misstate it, but a manufacturer had emissions coming out of a stack that had PFAS, and then that was alleged to have settled out. And because these are considered kind of forever chemicals, they don't break down. So as that exhaust settles out across the landscape, it can be claimed that it could seep into the groundwater over time. Sludge, if it's in water, it can be in wastewater, and sludges from different processing. And then if that sludge gets disposed of at different locations, sometimes on farms or other, just to dispose of the sludge, it can be transported and disposed of, spread out over land, and then that may seep its way down into the ground as well. So,
but neither of our well fields are anywhere near the sources you mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neil, I wanted to ask you, Neil, since you lived here most of your life out here, the Boy Scout camp that was that site, when was that in use as a camp?
Many years ago, they used to use it as a practice range for, I think, the police for weapons training. But that's some distance from the actual well field.
I believe, and again, I can't claim to be an expert here on the kind of hydraulics underground, but I believe there's been some discussion. That's where the testing is going to help to provide more data across the region. But I believe there's some either indication or belief that it can travel through the aquifers. I believe the Cape in particular may have a situation here where people believe that it's coming from other locations and moving.
But it would be miles.
Yeah, and so I'm outside of my realm. You guys are pretty far from where I think the other discussion is taking place.
But I think the water flow direction at the Boy Scout camp is basically flowing towards the west, and anything east of the well field is parked, and there are virtually no houses there at all.
Sure, and yeah, I certainly couldn't speak to any particular sources of contamination at your location, but those are some of the generalities that I've heard or experienced in the past here. So,
But you're measuring, they measure in parts per trillion?
yes,
That's an unbelievable, you can't even, the human mind can't even process that. 1 part per billion is basically a tablespoon full of water in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. That's 1 part per billion.
And
yes,
they say part trillion equals a pinhead in an Olympic size.
Yeah, it's
pool. That's how it's been
unbelievably
stated.
small.
Yeah,
I
it's-
don't understand how they can even test for that.
the and Jonathan, I don't have the report, but the way they helped to validate, because it was definitely a concern as far as could the sample be contaminated by atmospheric influence, the sampler or the environment that you're sampling from. And so the way they kind of qualify that is you take what they call a field blank. So when you take a sample out of the tap, you also take a control bottle full of fluid from the lab and you pour that out into your field blank bottle and they run that. And so in theory, if there's outside contamination even at the parts per trillion level, you'd see detects in the field blank bottle. So as long as that comes back as non-detect, and if you have detects in your water, then that's one of the quality controls that they do for that. But it is, yeah, extremely fine levels here that they're trying to measure at.
Yeah, I'll look into that more.
Is there any measure of contamination that's provable to be detrimental to health?
Probably all of the above.
That's a heavy topic right now across the industry. I don't have the answer. DEP states 20 parts per trillion is the lifelong, level that you can have in drinking water. EPA currently has not a requirement, but a guideline that is 70 parts per trillion. And other states haven't taken action on it yet. And then there's other states that are regulating it to lower levels, but differently. I can't give you a straight answer other than mass.
Remediation would be quite expensive.
There's design and treatment. Treatment can be, we've done it on a few larger municipal systems. It's a carbon vessel, so that the treatment itself isn't necessarily complicated, but yes, it would be a costly project to initiate.
Does RO factor into that to clean
Yeah,
it
that's
up?
an option. It would be an option. I'm not well versed on RO. There's ion exchange as well as a successful one, but I think those two processes are more operationally expensive. They may be more effective, but then if you have carbon, it's a bigger vessel and you have to dispose of that media, and then where you dispose of it becomes another problem, right? Because now it's PFAS contaminated media that can't be really incinerated easily. So let's fingers crossed that if we stay under the 20, it doesn't become a factor, and you don't have to necessarily seek out the initial source. But obviously January will be a big month to verify.
Well, thank you, Jared.
Okay, I'll be on if there's other questions.
Yeah, I think the next topic is the cross connection. So we did start, and I know Kurt that was out here completing some surveys and testing backflows. He put a lot of work into ensuring that we're covering everyone that is connected to the town system. So he did some digging into all the records we had. He seems to be more than halfway done. And Jared, I think you had just said he might have some more availability next week to come down and continue and maybe even complete what he has left to do.
Yep. Yeah, we'll circle back with you, Jonathan, on the scheduling of that, but it looks like we do have availability. We can make sure it works for everybody and keep him going on that.
Can one of you kind of explain what the issue here is, so for those who may not know what the backflow inspections entail and why that's important at this point?
Jared, do
Sure.
you want to go or do you want me to?
I can do it.
Sure,
if
I
you
can.
want.
Or John?
All right, go
I
ahead,
can
Jared.
do it. You guys can pile on top of it. So, put on my video here. The cross-connection surveying and backflow testing is one of the requirements of a public water system in order to verify that the PWS is responsible for the quality of the water to the, as they say, the last free-flowing tap. So typically it's commercial users, but the commercial, let's just say commercial users of the system or larger users of the water system might have boilers or, there's morgues and other things that sometimes, if in a loss of pressure situation, if there's contaminated water that's connected to the public water supply, you could get a
Go back.
backflow situation where you draw contaminated water into your distribution system, which could contaminate it and spread to other users. So that's a hazard. Hazards are classified as, low to high, right? There's low risk scenarios and there's high risk scenarios. So, so one of our licensed surveyors would go out, identify where the highest hazard users are based on who's connected to your system, and prioritize them, conduct a survey of their system to see what their operation consists of, what type of connections they have. Sorry, I missed this one, but a clear example is like a fire suppression system where you have stagnant water sitting in your sprinkler system, for instance, which could grow bacteria. And again, that could be drawn backwards if not properly protected. So those are protected through several different styles of devices. The more significant ones are testable. So we can come out with a kit and perform a test on that to make sure it's providing proper protection. And then we document that. Depends on the device. Some have to be tested annually, some are semi-annual. So the survey is meant to go around, identify the hazards that exist, make sure that they're properly protected with a device, and then recording the device into a list so that we can get them into the schedule for the appropriate frequency of testing. And that becomes a routine operation at that point. If they find a high hazard that is not protected, then as the public water supplier, you have the right to require them to install a device because you're responsible for the health and safety of the rest of the public attached to it. So
That's a backflow preventer,
correct.
but the customer would have to be generating some pressure more than about 60 PSI.
So without a device, right? So if your system runs at, let's say the system pressure is 60 PSI at their location, and there was no protection device, they would have to be producing more pressure than you're putting out.
Yep.
Or if there was ever a substantial drop or loss in pressure, a main break.
In the system, in the water system itself?
Correct. Yep. If you have a sudden change in pressure, something occurs, usage changes, a main break, something of that nature could cause that
A reduction in pressure.
situation.
Yeah.
So those are unlikely events, right? But again, the risk, if you draw contaminated water into your entire system, could be substantial, and that's why they have that requirement in place.
So, John, I think you've been working more closely with Kurt on this. So what are the types of properties that we have here in Wellesley that would be subject to this kind of inspection or testing?
Well, any kind of, like, I don't know, restaurants is one, gas stations. would be another. The Cumberland Farms did look at that. If you had a car wash, they would look at business like that. Those are the typical ones. I did sent the list that Kurt put specifics down on.
Right.
So
Funeral home.
to this point, he's gotten through what he feels is the high hazards. And he's starting to work on what he'd consider would be a medium hazard. And I thought he was going to be available next week to continue, but I think I just saw an email come through saying it's maybe the week after. Jared, did you see that?
All right, trying to get to I mean, I was pulling
Yeah.
up the list that I had here. I didn't see it
Right.
yet, John.
Yeah, I think Kurt just asked if something about East Bridgewater for another week. So, and
Okay.
what we're doing, Jim, just to let you know, is we discussed it today. Maybe be Jonathan, but as we did with Mike Nee, we got him a license to do the testing. But obviously Mike moved on. So I think Jonathan maybe getting both the tester and surveyor's license. So that way there's somebody in town. And whenever a new business starts, rather than wait for someone to come down and do the testing, they can do the survey, the initial tests right on the spot. And that would be advantageous to everybody, I think.
Right. Do we have that many businesses or properties that?
I
This
would
was-
have to look at the list for a number. I think
Yeah, I was trying to pull it up here, John. I didn't quite get to it fast enough here, but
Karen may have that in front of her as well. I just don't have it in front of me.
I mean, I see a total list here that's roughly. This is what he had started out with, identifying who was connected that was potential, and there's about 60 so locations. Not all of them need surveys. I think that's part of what his on-site time was, validating some of these addresses that we had and whether or not they would require a survey. And then out of the ones that require a survey, how many would be considered, high or medium hazard. And as John said, I think that was down to 5 to 10, maybe of each off the top of my head, but I will try to confirm that and either get back to people or have Jonathan and John pass the message on. So
Let me ask, if we had say a church that has a community kitchen in their basement, would that be considered a location that would require such an inspection?
I would believe that would likely require an inspection. It may not require a backflow protection device. It depends on kind of what they're doing in the kitchen for prep and what they have for a lot of like a dishwasher is a hazard. But a lot of dishwashers, and especially commercial dishwashers, would have a built-in device from the manufacturer. So he would try to check that and see if that was the case, in which case there is protection being provided and nothing may need to be added. He writes up a report. It documents that the survey was done. And then if they don't make any substantial changes to their system, then you don't need to do a survey for another 5+ years at that location.
I think there'd
So
be
it doesn't necessarily mean
a,
a device needs to be added, but
I think there'd be a dual check on that anyway. Jonathan, when you put in a meter, do you have a dual check valve at every location?
Every new connection, yes, we're putting in a check valve, but I can't speak for all of Wellesley.
Yeah, I think years ago we were putting them in as well. So a church, something like that didn't have anything in it that would be hazardous to, per se, would have a dual check valve, a non-testable device at the meter. And moving forward in Wellfleet, I know they're going to put one in every time they put in a new meter. So places like that, homes, everywhere would have that as protection.
For some reason, I thought that was the case, John, that
I believe it is the case.
was supposed to be anyways, that there was a check valve.
You know, sprinkler systems are supposed to have a testable.
Yep.
Now they want testable devices on there. Most towns don't make you test them, but some towns are starting to make you actually test them on your sprinkler system.
Right.
And a lot
Okay.
of water systems do actually charge the water user for both the survey expense and the, sometimes it's a flat fee that they say surveys are X dollars and testing. If you do have a device or are required to have a device, each time we have to go out and test semi-annual, annual, the water department is reimbursed for that cost by the user. So it's an option if you don't currently do that. So.
That could be definite for the town.
Right. Any questions, Neil or Catherine?
No, I haven't
Uh-uh.
any questions.
Nope.
Thank you. Hi, Kurt. You're on mute, Kurt.
I just had a little equipment accident. It took me a long time to clean it up. Nobody got hurt.
Okay.
Okay.
No mosquitoes were hurt.
We'll
Yeah,
fill
exactly.
you in on where of all the issues that we've discussed up to this point. But unless there's anything more, I want to let the folks from Whitewater, leave if they need to, because the rest of it really is stuff that is more internal to us. So. Jonathan, John, or Jared, any points, anything more that you want to share with us?
Well, thank you for having us again. We
Thanks
do
for
appreciate
coming.
it.
Thanks for coming.
Absolutely.
Jim, the only other thing I was curious about, and I know you said you keep me in the loop, but just the status of Dig It and the new construction. So if
Okay.
you don't have any updates, then
I'm happy to go into that now. So Dig It, as for those of you who don't know, but Dig It is the contractor that was selected to do the water main installation here in Wellesley, and that we are having a pre-construction meeting this Thursday. I had hoped that you would have gotten the notice on that, Jonathan, that would come from Environmental Partners.
I have not received anything yet.
All right, well, I'll make sure that we get that over to you. So if you are available at 9 o'clock on Thursday morning to join that Zoom meeting, this is essentially kind of a pre-planning as to when they would be starting, what, if any, of these, there are issues that need to be addressed, and there will be, I know Butch Nealon from Cape Water Resources will be on the call with us because there are issues related to the SCADA system, particularly at the Coles Neck well field, that need to be addressed. So I'll forward the sign-in information to you.
Yep, please do, because I'd like to be on that.
Okay. And while you are still with us here, I don't know if you got the notice about the hydrants that may need to be moved with the reconstruction of the intersection of Route 6 and Main Street. There are I believe three hydrants that will need to be moved when they start to do the work there.
And that's completely separate of the water main upgrade project, correct?
Correct. This has
All
to
right, so-
do with the work that's going to take place on that intersection.
Okay, yeah, I started seeing emails about it and was just confused by it all because I thought it had something to do with the new main going in, but
No, the three, in fact, I saw today the list of the hydrants that will have to be relocated. And I think that they are asking you, Jonathan, for your recommendation with respect to whether or not those hydrants that can be reused, or if we have to put new ones in. Two of them I know are fairly new. The one that's in front of Cumberland Farms, and the one at the intersection of Pine Point Road and Route 6. And the third one, I believe, is near actually near the intersection of Route 6 and Main Street.
Yeah, I did see that list come through today, so I will check those out and let you know what I think.
And can I ask a question about that? Do they need to be moved permanently, or, I mean, is that a relocation of the line completely, or do they take them out and do like a temp, or do they need to dig down to, I can't imagine they'd be going down a pipe level, so would they just do temporaries and then reinstall the existing hydrants?
Well, I believe, if I'm understood it correctly, I have not seen the plans, but if I understand it correctly, that it will be that the hydrants will be relocated permanently further away from the road bed.
Wow. Why'd they let us put them there in the first place? It was a DOT call.
I know. Well, here's another example of, good money after bad, like the fact that they've been redoing all of that intersection in terms of repaving it over the last couple of months.
I can't believe there wasn't an article in the paper.
Well,
I'm just
there may be-
flabbergasted. I'm absolutely flabbergasted.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Because what I've seen in other projects, typical city projects, they just put in temporary connections because they want to move them outside the area of construction. But then they just they just take the temps. Basically, it's fire hoses. They connect the line with fire hoses till they complete all their work, and then they put them back together. But anyway, they do things different in rural areas, I guess.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's what we know so far, Jonathan, but I think my opinion, at least those two, the one at Cumberland Farms and the one at Pine Point Road and Route 6, those are new. They're within the last 2 years. And as far as I know, they haven't gotten any use whatsoever since they've been installed.
The
I don't think the third one.
One more question, Jim. Are the relocations paid for by the road project?
Well, if they're not thinking they're going to have to do it that way, I think we're going to fight them on this one, because clearly this was not something that we initiated. So it's not, in my opinion, it's not a water department issue.
Right.
Well,
Any more info you get on that, let me know.
I
Set up
will
plans, whatever it is.
I will forward you the sign-on information for the meeting for Thursday morning.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yep.
Take care.
So just to continue on for a moment about Dig It. So that meeting is Thursday morning. And I did offer Neil that if he wanted to join in on that meeting, that, I would provide him with the sign-in information. I don't think that it makes sense for any more than two of us from the Water Commission to be part of that discussion.
Where's the meeting going to be?
It's a Zoom meeting, Neil,
Oh, okay.
your favorites.
Ha,
So, and it will include what the engineer from Environmental Partners, as I said, the probably police and fire chief will be part of it. Jay Norton from DPW, and Butch Nealon from Cape Water Resources. And the plan is that they will be beginning the installation in December, in this month. So, weather permitting. So the next item on here is the financial analysis of water rates and connection fees. Pioneer Consulting was the low bidder on this issue, and the contract has been signed with them, and they will be beginning within the next couple of weeks to do their work on it. They've asked for a fair amount of information from us to help them get started on it, and we'll be supplying that to them within the next week or so. We're hoping that it follows along with the scope of work that we had provided to them in the RFP as the one that we discussed at our meeting, as you may recall, several months ago. So that's where we're at with that.
That sounds great, Jim. Do you want to send me the list of stuff that they're requesting in case I've got some of it? I may
Yes,
have.
I wanted to talk with you because I know you've got issues around what you need for any wastewater planning.
Yeah, the wastewater stuff is separate, but yes.
I think some of it overlaps. So that's where I thought if you and I could have a conversation offline, we can kind of come down to a list that I can get to you, or if you already have stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I may have some stuff in my files from either, prior to Karen that they're looking for, whatever, that just might be convenient. If I can shoot it out, I will. And then with regard to the wastewater issue, that was something that just came up last week. The consultant that's working for the wastewater team, just so everybody else is aware, had asked for 3 years worth of billing data, parcel level water consumption data. And the reason they're looking for that is to be able to do planning of how much wastewater would be generated and need to be removed with a sewer system, which is a DEP requirement. So they know that the numbers for Wellfleet are a lot lower than the state normal numbers, or what they use for typical production. And so they're trying to use local numbers because they're going to be able to justify a lower expense relative to, what's probably generated in the town. So that was the need. That was the reason for the need for that data.
Well, Bert, that was one of my questions was, if it comes down to that, it's, we're looking at what the needs would be for a system that's essentially in the center part of Wellfleet, where say like the water mains currently run or something. As you know, a lot of properties have not connected to the system. So I don't know how you would get an accurate understanding of what the water flow would be for a wastewater system, particularly if you've got properties that are not connected to the.
Yes, a great question, Jim. So what they would do is they're looking for basically parcel level averages. So you have a single bedroom, you have 15 of them that are connected to the water system for which you have data. That's a way to extrapolate for single bedroom homes, what a Wellfleet average would look like. Same thing for two bedroom, 3 bedrooms. So they're going to break them down by housing type and sort of have buckets. They know how many of the different types of housing types they've got along the runs that they're going to be looking at. So they're basically just trying to use local data to be able to build up what it would look like. And it's clearly not everybody's connected. Karen, when I shot out the email to her the other day, raised the obvious point that not everybody's connected and a very limited amount of people are connected. But at the end of the day, everything that they can get that's local data, they can just use to provide a better basis for what they're doing rather than just take state numbers, which are typical for suburban Boston or, other areas that are not really that typical of Wellfleet.
Right. All right, well, let's take that conversation offline. You and I can kind of review that list and hopefully if you've got anything you can share with us, then we can expedite the process here to get the analysis done. So I'd like to give Karen a chance to share with us anything on an update on billings and collections.
Okay, I did send Anastasia the billings for 2021. I was able to get 2 files and send those to her. So she has those, and I'll keep banging on Petachuk for 20 and 19. So we'll see if we get any response.
Fantastic. Thank you. That's great.
Okay, so let's see. For November's billing, we billed about $60,000. And to date, we've got about $18,000 paid in. So that's good news. Let's see. I've collected on past lien amounts of money for the 10-year lien, about $60,000 to date. And then on past usage, I've collected about $7,000 on past usage bills. So the liens outstanding, we're still owed $37,000. And usage outstanding is about $8,000.
So let me ask you, Karen, on the liens outstanding, are those outstanding amounts that are due, or is that just?
Yes. No, that's due as of 2021. Those are past due.
Okay.
I haven't sent out 2022 yet.
All right.
That bill will go out in May.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to do is close out the 2021s, release the liens from the properties, and make sure that all those are clean. And then people who owe us back money, some have been making payments, most have ignored me. So we're making progress.
So in the current year, since July 1, what would you say is the total that we've been able to collect?
60,000.
Okay.
Since I've billed them, started going after the people that haven't billed us, it's $59,885.83 is what I've collected as of last week. And then I got another check this week, but I roll that up on Fridays.
So with respect to that amount, how does that compare with what we budgeted for revenues for the current fiscal year?
I haven't looked at that. I haven't looked at it. I'm just busy trying to get the money in. I didn't look at what was budgeted because I wasn't part of the budgeting process when I got here. I was just asked to bring in the money.
Jim, I think that's what that's going to do is it's going to inflate our revenue by that amount because that's arrears. That's not, the budget was based on what we would have been expecting for normal billings from water usage and normal payments. Isn't that right?
You asking me or Karen now?
Yeah, you, because I think the budget basis is current expected revenue. So from water usage fees and from payments that would be due in the year. So collection of arrears will show up as a surplus, right?
Well, it should, right? I understand what you're saying, but I mean, the last billing that happened, the most recent one was in November. The one prior to that was in May. So I would have assumed that much of the revenues associated with the May billings arrived in the summer months.
That's the usage. I think he's talking about the liens.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
talking
no,
about
the
the
use-
liens.
Yeah, well,
The
I'm talking
usage is,
moment here. So whatever we budgeted for revenues for usage for this year would have been impacted by the billings that were done back in May and will continue to be impacted by the billings that were done in November of this year.
Right. Right. Yeah, I'm just thinking it's a pretty big lien amount and it's probably gonna show up as a surplus.
What's the legal way to handle these liens?
I'm supposed to notify them 30, 60, 90 days. And then I'm supposed to then put it on the taxes, their property taxes. But because some of these people are willing to pay me X amount of money each month, they decided that next year, if I send out the bills next year and they don't pay it, then it goes right on their property taxes, the whole entire amount.
Hmm.
So somebody's going to be getting some big bills.
So what is the total amount that's covered by liens at this point?
The total amount that's outstanding is
Yeah.
37,000. 37,000 is outstanding.
And how about
But
how many
that's not-
people? Yeah, how many people are involved in that? How many residences?
That owe me, probably 12 owe me for past due amounts. 12
12 people.
properties.
Yeah, okay.
I got it down significantly.
Well, that's good. So are there special considerations for any of the people who still have these liens and are not paying them down?
An example of what you're asking? Like,
Yeah, I mean, how is the town dealing with people who, for example, really are in financially desperate situations?
those people who have contacted me, I have worked out payment plans. Those people who have not contacted me and ignoring me, there is no help for them because they're not even responding to mail.
No, but is there anybody in the legal department here who would be
They've
stepping
already,
in?
I've already talked to legal. I've already talked to KP Law. They've already discussed what to do.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, I couldn't do anything until they told me what I could do.
Yeah. I guess
Karen,
what
is there,
I'm getting to is, what is potentially collectible and what may have to just be written off.
Well, you can't write off the liens. We own the property. We have liens on all that property. They won't,
So you
when
would
they go to sell their
eventually-
house,
You would
we'll get
eventually
the money
get
when
it.
they sell the house
Oh,
or it's
okay.
transferred.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I see that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Kurt, what?
yeah, the other question would be, is there anybody in the group, Karen, that the outstanding balance, I know that there were several, I don't know how many, but there were some customers who we had not billed and had developed some fairly sizable outstanding balances, but mainly because we hadn't billed them. Is there anybody in that category still, or did that kind of get worked out?
Nope, there's still a lot of them. There's still, most of those people are still in that category.
Are you saying liens, Kurt, or?
No,
Yeah.
well, I don't know. If-
Liens,
It wouldn't be liens because these would be people that we didn't even bill. So we wouldn't have.
that
we
was
wouldn't
the
have put a lien.
lien. The water usage has always been billed. It's the lien people that didn't get billed for a couple of years. There's some people that fell through the cracks. And then we didn't have anybody in the office, so they didn't get, there was nobody there to send out the bills. So everybody has been, I've written letters to everybody stating that here's the situation. We need to get you current to 2021. And most people in town have reluctantly paid me, except for about 12 people that have not. And a lot of those 12 have totally ignored me. Some of them are making payments. So, you know, it's the people who are ignoring me that are gonna, next year when we bill again, that bill will go on their tax, or their
Taxes, yeah.
property taxes in
Okay.
November. It'll be
Okay.
next year. And then you'll get all your money that's owed.
Right, I guess Catherine and I were both just trying to learn whether there was somebody that we ought to be extending any kind of special consideration to as a result of our not billing them.
Yeah.
They
that's-
have all the opportunity to call and talk to me and walk through this process with me, but they don't even call. They just totally ignore everything.
Now, let me ask you, Karen, who's sending out those notices to these property owners?
Me,
Okay, do they go out just regular mail, or are they return receipt requested?
no, I don't have a credit card to do that. I don't have any way of doing that
So.
because I have to go to the post office to do
The
that.
reason I'm asking is whether or not these property or the addresses we have are still current or not.
Well, that has been a huge problem, huge. So I've tracked down as many as I could, and there's still a number of people. And I mean, we can do that privately if you want, Jim. We can go over the names of the people who owe us, and go through that privately. I don't want to, you know, put them on the spot.
No,
on-
I'm not suggesting we do that here. But what I think probably what we do is, that we may need to do is look at that list and then kind of review it with the assessor as well.
Already done. Check, done. I already did that.
And if they have current addresses, we just need to
No.
make sure we're using the same ones.
Already been there, done that.
So have you gotten a sense, without naming names here, have you gotten a sense that there are outstanding real estate tax bills that are not being paid?
Yes,
And they
yes,
all the same people?
yes. And yes,
Shutting off their curb stop will get their attention.
We can't do
well,
that.
that's
yet.
if they get water.
Yeah, well, I mean,
And-
I know as regards the property taxes, there are people who can apply for a special, you know, consideration due to low income and so forth. And I just wonder whether somehow that can tie into this.
I will tell you, there are people who have property right on Main Street and they're collecting rent and they're not paying me. So I don't really have a lot of sympathy for people who are getting big rent for retail spots and not paying me.
Yeah,
So,
no, that's
I mean,
understandable, but
and there
I
are
just-
some people. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, as Kurt just said, you know, there may be some situations where we might consider resolving these things due to the particular situation of the property owner. I'm thinking of, you know, some elderly widow who has very little income and maybe has a property that, so if she could sell it, would get a lot of money, but where would she go? You know,
Those aren't the cases. I'll tell you that right now. Those aren't the cases.
okay.
The people who
that's-
are having financial trouble have called me and said, I have problems. Can you help me? And I say, yes. And we work it
Okay.
through.
Okay, well.
It's
that's-
not,
yeah,
that's
good.
not who you, when you go through the names, you will realize it's not who you think it is.
Well, that's good to hear that has already happened. Thank you.
So-
Yeah,
Oh,
that's-
yeah,
that's-
I've bent over backwards.
Terrific. That's what that's what we were wondering, Karen. That's great. Thank you.
And I think we do need to, Karen, take this up a notch to ensure that the town is addressing this, not just with water bills, but also with real estate taxes. If that's an issue there, We should be
Well, I
getting,
think Mary's addressing that. Mary is now the Mary, not Mary Rogers, but the other Mary, I forgot her last name, is now the acting treasurer. And now they are kicking up a notch and starting to collect, they will start to collect the taxes by the rules and regulations of the state and the town. So that's in the process now.
good. Hopefully that will help us too.
Yes, I hope.
Okay,
It means that there's somebody in there taking names and you know what.
right. All right, if there's nothing more on that, the only other item we have on the agenda is approval of minutes. And since those only came out, we only shared those with folks as of yesterday. I feel like we need to give more time before we actually vote on it, but I leave that up to the rest of you, how you feel about that.
Didn't we get some of them before?
No.
We may
did
have,
not.
but
Okay,
We
well,
didn't approve.
okay. Well, at least we could do the last meeting, which was so brief.
which was the,
November 2nd.
Yeah.
yes. Did everyone read the November 2nd meeting minutes?
Yeah, I would move that we approve the November 2nd minutes.
Second,
Okay,
second.
so roll call vote, Katri,
Oh, yes, yes.
Neil,
Yes,
Kurt,
Yes,
and I say yes as well. Okay, so the minutes of the meeting of November 2nd, 2021 are approved with a 4-0 vote. Again, though, I would think that the other three, September 7th, October 5th, and October 20th, I would like to give people more time to go through these. I just feel that we didn't have enough time to really look at them. So if you don't have them, please let us know so that we can make fast work of these at our next meeting.
Okey doke.
And the next meeting, by the way. I'm proposing that we would meet 2 weeks from today. We do have a few issues that we need to address. We have a request from a community member who wishes to join the meeting to discuss some issues. And so I would like to do that at that meeting. If that's
That'd be
okay,
the 20th?
yes.
21st, you mean?
Today's
Oh,
the-
21st, excuse me, yeah.
Right, 21st.
Um,
No problem?
I'm actually traveling. I probably can Zoom, but I just don't know.
All right. Well, if we can get Tom on, then we will have a quorum, or we'll have a quorum at any rate with,
Oh, okay.
okay,
I was going
So-
to go away on the 21st, but we changed our mind.
okay. All right. All right, so it'll be the
Omicron.
1st, 4 o'clock. Good. Any other comments, questions?
Oh, we learned a lot today.
There's a lot of information.
Yes.
All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Kateri?
What? Yes, oh, yeah.
Okay.
I need a happy hour.
A vote. Neil?
yes,
Kurt?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. So we have motion and it's carried to adjourn.
Okay.
So that is at 5:20. Kurt, will you be available that you and I could talk
Yeah.
in a few?
I have some time now, if that works for you.
I just want to let Karen off of the call, so
Sure.
I'll call, all right? I'll call you shortly.
Okay.
Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
All right, good
Thank you.
night. Yeah, good
Thanks,
night.
Neil.